This episode is sponsored by the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. January entertainment includes fan favorite Humphreys McGee on the 18th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Broadway star Ari'el Stachel kicks off his one-man show Out of Character today in Washington, D.C. as a special co-production of Theater J and Mosaic Theater. He joined me to discuss writing and performing the autobiographical stage show, as well as memories of his Tony-winning role in The Band's Visit. Hey, Ari'el Stachel. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
My absolute pleasure. I'm very happy to be here in DC with you.
Yes, we are talking to the one and only Tony winner, Ari'el Stachel, who's bringing your one-man show Out of Character to Washington, D.C. from January 8th through 26th. So I believe it's a Berkeley rep production co-presented by Theater J and Mosaic. That's how we'll present it, right?
That is the most accurate version of the description. Yeah.
Giving everyone their flowers, all the great theater here in DC. All right, cool. So being a co-production, is this the first time performing it ever, or did you do it at Berkeley and this is the first time?
So no, I did it in Berkeley, and it's kind of funny to call it the Berkeley rep production because frankly, I feel like it is a very new production. The world has changed a lot, and part of what made me feel like I wanted to have its East Coast premiere here in DC and specifically at Theater J with Mosaic is that the world has changed a great deal for Jews. It felt like an opportunity to, deepen the themes of the play, which had always sort of been about identity and anxiety and sort of the interplay between those two. But, being here in this environment is sort of just, small things, they're rehearsing in a JCC. So you walk, in the hall and there's challah bread and like the rehearsal studio that I'm in is also like a synagogue on Saturday morning. So you feel that and it somehow finds its way into the piece.
Right. Yeah. And thanks for mentioning that. It will be the physical venue for this show if listeners want to head out. It's at the Edlavich DC JCC, which I know hosts Theater J. But I want to clarify because Mosaic usually does it over at the Atlas Performing Center on H Street.
Right.
But this is over at the Edlavich DC JCC.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. But it was at Berkeley previously. But this is the East Coast premiere. When was it at Berkeley? When did it officially world premiere?
So we ran in the summer. It was like July, August of 2023.
Okay.
And now we're at the very beginning of 2025. And it feels, even though I guess it was just a year and a half ago, it feels like ages ago as far as the way that history is moving forward and what we're living through right now.
Oh, so we've had so many different candidates dropped out, different candidates get in, and then the election was a crazy election. Yeah, so much has changed, not to mention world events, which I want to get into the premise of the play in a second, but I wanted to real quick respond to what you said about how much has changed for the Jewish experience around the world, too. So explain what I know what you mean, but explain.
Yeah, I mean, listen, well, I have a very unique experience within the Jewish American experience. But, obviously October 7th is a thing that was, created a massive war, in the Middle East. But I think there was another war that happened here. It was a social media war. It was a war on our streets. It became very polarized. I think that, Jews felt antagonized. I think Arabs did too. And part of what I explore in the play is that I'm actually both. I am a Yemenite Jew,
right?
Which is kind of like a dense thing for people to understand. Like, that it's not that I'm Arab and Jewish, it's that I'm an Arab Jew, which is a contentious thing to say. If you went to Israel, the Jews who immigrated from Middle Eastern countries would not say that they're Arab. And I, as a kid who was raised in the United States, never quite understood that because I look Arab and I identify with my Arab American friends, and so it's all context, but broadening out to what you asked, you know, the sense of a Jewish community and of the importance of one's Jewish identity, I think struck a nerve in every single Jewish person, certainly that I know. Our relationship to our religion, to our community changed. And so, speaking of which, I mean, October 7th happened, I want to say, 2 or 3 months after the run at Berkeley ended. And of course, you know, theater is a living and breathing thing. So
Yeah.
it became clear to me that this was the right place to sort of explore the next layer of what this play was all about.
Absolutely. So yes, while the Berkeley rep was technically the world premiere, everything you just said transpired right after that ended. So in a way, this is definitely the East Coast premiere, but in a way, it's also like a rebirth of the world premiere based on everything else that's going on in the world. Like there's a whole new
100%.
context. First time to see
100%.
it. Yep, that's
100%.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that makes it exciting to go see it here in DC.
Thank you.
Um, I know it's a one man show, so that means you're writing it and performing it. Let's take those one at a time. We'll get to performing it in a second, but sitting down and writing this autobiographical tale, obviously you're mentioning your Yemeni Jewish mixed ethnicity, a bunch of stuff that you deal with transferring schools and stuff in childhood, and then as an adult, mental health and anxiety, etc. That you deal with a lot in this thing. So yeah, what are some of the topics that are explored throughout this from your life?
Well, sure. I mean, so the first thing I'll say is that it's called Out of Character because I spent many years of my life trying on different identities, trying to fit in. And so, the journey of the character in the play is about sort of what does it mean to unmask yourself, and it takes quite a while to unmask yourself to figure out who you actually are. So that's sort of the reason why it's titled in that way. Um, and the impetus to write it was like when I say that I tried on different identities, I mean I did it in a very convincing way. So I went full throttle. I changed schools, made up different stories about who I was, fit into different ethnic groups depending on how I spoke and dressed. And so, I'd always been sort of like kind of haunted by really it starts before 9/11, but 9/11 is a really pivotal moment in my life and also in the story. And that was the moment that changed every Middle Eastern American's life.
Of course, yeah.
Now, in my case, it was complicated because I'm Arab looking, but I'm Jewish.
Right,
And so I'm not experiencing the Islamophobia, but I am experiencing the anti-Arabness.
right.
And, so that was in fifth grade for me. And that led me onto a journey of wanting to do anything but being seen as Middle Eastern. And so eventually I found community and safety with my Black friends at school, which gave me this fantasy that I was Black, and that lasted for a while. Um, and so this wild experience of like trying to hide my dad and my lineage throughout high school and throughout middle school to like fit in and to feel decent about myself, which did the opposite, of course. But when you're a kid, you're just trying to find anything to sort of soothe your social concerns at school.
Yeah.
Um, had sort of haunted me, and so I was started writing about that, and I ended up connecting with this wonderful director named Tony Taccone, who's directed a lot of really luminous Broadway solo shows, and he started working with me, and what I was focused on wasn't enough for him, and so 2 years in our exploration, it became clear that it was also very much about anxiety, and that I wasn't acknowledging that I also was diagnosed with OCD when I was 6. And so the interplay between world events and having this, physiological and psychological conditions to this OCD, the interplay between those things
Yeah.
made me make some very extreme choices in my life to cope. And so I would say 2 years into my writing process, it became equally about anxiety as it was about identity. And it took 4 years from dreaming up this thing to actually get it on stage in Berkeley. And here we
Yeah.
are 5.5 years later. And I feel like now the play is finally revealing itself to me as to what it actually is.
Right, right. Wow. I just love that you have this canvas to work out. And that's what theater is and film and TV as well. But yeah, especially theater, you can just work out all of your stuff, these external forces of world events and the internal struggles that, we all have our own, and you've put them all in this show out of character. It's fantastic. All right, so that's the writing of it. Now the other side, it is a one-man show. So you're performing this, bell to bell, curtain to curtain. What are the challenges of doing a one-man show? I mean, you must be exhausted by the end.
Well, the first challenge is that you're on stage for, I think in my case, an hour 15 uninterrupted.
Yeah.
So the first challenge is, how many times am I going to try to go pee before I get on stage so that I don't have to run off stage? That's like the most minor thing. And then in the curtains, and there's a stage manager there, and you sort of peek out and you look at all the people sort of piling up in the audience, if you're lucky enough to have people in the audience, which I
Yeah,
have been, knock on wood. And then they turn the house lights down, and you're looking at and waiting. There's a little light, and the stage manager taps you, and that's when you go on stage. And there's kind of this like I, it's a beast, because
yeah.
it's not telling a story for a minute at a dinner party. It's not 5 minutes. It's an hour and
Yeah.
15 minutes,
And
nearly
you're
an
not
hour.
coming on in one role, but then you get to pitch to another actor, and then you leave the stage and do a costume change. You're there the whole
You're
time.
there. There's no intermission. There's no halftime. There's no break. There's no water break. There's
Yeah.
nothing. And so you're there, and you got to ride the wave. And sometimes, it's like you're tired, but somehow then you get on the stage, and the audience sort of invigorates you in some way. And but I'll also say, just about the technical elements of the performance, is that I talked to you about my childhood of sort of appropriating other identities and trying to sort of mask my Middle Eastern identity. So that ended up being the thing that made me become an actor. And so I transformed during the course of the show, I think 40 characters at least,
Oh, wow.
um, which is awesome, which is fun. And
And they
one of the,
all have to pee really bad.
they all have to be good, hopefully. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the audience can determine that. But part of the freedoms and joy of a solo show, and in this particular case, is that like it sometimes nowadays there's so many different forms of entertainment that we can engage in, that you have to really make the live event feel necessary. And a solo show relies on an audience, and there
Right.
is this interaction. It's never happening the same thing, what's happening one day to another. And so that creates what I think is like the most alive version of theater. And so you ask the performance, it's like scary. It's like you're just there, you're kind of
Yeah.
naked
Yeah.
metaphorically on stage.
Yeah.
But it creates a degree of intimacy between an actor and the audience that I think makes theater what it is, which is magic.
Absolutely, and well said.
Right.
That's awesome. We can't wait to see it. Well, that's a good bit about the show itself. But since it deals with your actual life, I'd love to chart a little bit of your, origin story, your road, your career journey. Then we'll wrap it back around out of character to close out. But so like you were saying, yeah, you were born in Berkeley, California in '91. Your dad was a Yemenite from Israel. Your mom's Jewish from New York, and I guess they met in San Francisco. So that's how you grew up in California. So, what were your childhood inspirations? What did you go to the theater growing up, or was it like you did a
No,
school
no,
play, or what
no.
did it?
So, I was a kid who just wanted to find like love and praise. So like it was whatever felt good to me. The fact that I until about like 12 or 13, I thought I was going to be in the NBA. I thought I was going to break through as the first Yemenite Israeli
Nice.
American basketball
Well,
player.
you were born in '91, so you're right there for all six of Jordan's
Exactly.
titles.
So I wanted to be a basketball player, but and then I tried a multitude of different art forms growing up. My mom was a pianist in college. My sister was in dance. And so there was always this curiosity about art. And I had this pretty uncanny ability to impersonate people. Like that would be the thing that made people really laugh around, the house. And so
Like family and friends or like celebrities?
family and friends. Like I never, yeah, it wasn't on
Yeah.
it wasn't in front of an audience until actually, and then I switched to an arts high school for dance because my sister was a dancer and I sucked at dancing. So, but I ended up impersonating that dance teacher really, really well. He's a character in the show. And by the end of that year, auditioned for the school musical. It was an arts high school, and I got one of the leading roles. And one
What
of the
was it? What was the show?
it was in Footloose.
Nice. Cut
And
loose.
one of the exactly and one of the dance teachers who had been on Broadway came to me and he was like, I don't think you have a future in dance, but I think you could be great as a singer and as an actor. And 15-year-old kid, someone says you can be great, and I chased it and I switched to theater, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
Obviously, the journey of an actor is arduous, so it wasn't like smooth sailing, but that was the thing that stuck, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and I'm still doing it.
I love that. So that production of Footloose causes you to leave Berkeley High School to attend Oakland School for the Arts, and then you go on to NYU
No,
to.
actually, no. Actually, I left Berkeley High after my freshman year when I realized I wasn't going to be in the NBA. Auditioned for the art school and got in.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the Oakland School of the Arts is where Footloose happened. Okay, gotcha.
that
Sorry about those NBA dreams, man. At some point you just realize
I'm still hoping.
there's still a chance. uh,
It's really challenging to like I'm 33 now, and you start seeing that guys my age are like on the downhill slope of their career,
yeah,
and
they're
that's
considered
tough.
old, and we're like, wait a minute.
It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Wait, so who was your team? I gotta ask. I want to get
It's
back.
the
We'll
Warriors.
get to the band's visit in a second. Don't worry. But yeah,
They're
I
the
want to
Golden
know
State
now.
Warriors.
It was the Warriors. Oh, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So was it Tim Hardaway, or were you too young
No,
for
that
Tim
was
Hardaway?
Jason
Chris
Richardson. It was
Mullen.
the worst team. No, it wasn't. It was after. It was like Jason
Oh,
Richardson, Donald. It was a terrible team.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm throwing out names from. I was born in '84, so I'm thinking probably the generation of players.
Not to hate, but they were then what the Wizards are now.
Oh, I dare you to say that on stage in DC.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we all know. We all know.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Poor Wizards. But shout out Dave Johnson. Their play by play. Anyway, but yeah, all right. So back on track. So all right, so then you're at Oakland School for that. So then you go to NYU, Tisch
Get to
School.
NYU for theater.
Right. So that brings you to New York. So I'm assuming you get to go see a good bit of Broadway while you're there. But I know before you get to the band's visit, I want to remind folks you dabbled in some television too, right? You were with Tom Selleck in Blue Bloods on CBS, Jessica Jones on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
What is that pre-band's visit period like? Because you graduate from NYU, so are you like going to Broadway shows, but then flying out to LA to audition for
Oh
a
man.
sitcom?
So you leave school. If you're lucky enough, you get an agent. I got an agent. And then you just throw spaghetti on the wall and sees what sticks. And actually, the first role I got on television, actually, it's a funny story. I had just gotten the email from my agent, and you're doing what you do when you first get out of school is you're auditioning a lot.
Yeah.
You're developing relationships with casting directors. You're doing workshops of shows. It's challenging to get the trust for someone to give you. You got to sort of get your reps in. But I got this audition for Blue Bloods, and I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I got this role. I got my first role on TV, and I hadn't even auditioned yet."
Yeah.
But I knew that I was going to get it because it was about a kid who came from like a Jewish family who was pretending to be a rapper, like a gangster rapper, and I was like, I know what that is. I got the part. So it was great being on television. I did the Jessica Jones. I did some other stuff. But and yeah, so those were the days where there weren't self-tape. Like nowadays, everything's electronic. But those days, you're just hustling, and you're either going to I was auditioning for Broadway musicals, I was auditioning for television shows, I was auditioning for
Right.
movies. and just busy, 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 and whatever sticks, sticks.
I love it. And that's the only way you know. You literally you don't know which one's gonna hit. So you just give yourself the best chance by doing all these roles. And sure enough, boom comes one of the great Broadway shows, winningest Broadway shows ever in The Band's Visit. I guess it was in 2017.
Yeah,
It's I believe just if our folks somehow missed it, it's about this band of what are they? I guess they're like Egyptian musicians, but they arrive in the wrong town in Israel, right?
correct.
I interviewed creator Itamar Moses a couple years ago, and
Oh, no
he
kidding.
yeah, he was about to launch the Fievel American Tail musical or something, is why we had him on, but then we got to talk about Man's Visit. He was
Yeah,
saying that he remembered that it was originally a 2007 Israeli film by Yaron Kolorin, I think.
that's right.
Um,
Cody.
yeah, the filmmaker was skeptical about turning it into a musical originally, but then when he brought David Yazbek on, and the rest is history. But memories of just first grappling with it as a story. I want to ask you about Tony Night in a second, but as a story and reading that character of Haled,
Yeah.
why did it jump off the page? Like I'm sure it was just probably unlike anything you'd read before.
Well, actually, the answer is a little more simple, and this is actually the lovely thing is I'll tell you a story that's also played out on stage in my solo show. So I'll tell you in my words, and it's
Yeah.
also brought to life on stage, which is it was a very simple reason. I graduated college at NYU, and I had eventually joined a group of Middle Eastern, like there was a group for Middle Eastern actors, and we were just trying to gain some visibility and kind of fighting for roles that were not as two-dimensional, kind of because a lot of it was terrorist kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And so the exciting thing was that there was a Middle Eastern musical on Broadway. It was like unbelievable. It was like, oh my God.
Right.
And the role of Khaled was cool and swaggy and all the things and things that I didn't really often get to see in association with Middle Eastern characters, right? This is a three-dimensional guy. He loves jazz. So all my friends were freaking out. We're like, this is our shot, because in those days we couldn't compete for most of the regular, roles on Broadway because they weren't seeking Middle Eastern looking people.
Right.
So it was really that simple for me. And I wanted it so much that I panicked to a degree where didn't get it the first round. No one really is going to care about the details. But at that time, Hal Prince was the director.
The legend.
Hal Prince ended up leaving the project and they found a new director. And so they were going to recast it. But when I found out that I didn't get it the first time, it sunk me into one of the deepest depressions of my life because
Oh no.
I needed it. And I felt like I knew this guy. Another director comes on board. They announce they're recasting it. I get a breath of fresh life. I don't get it then. And that's like 4 auditions in because you do the first one, then you do the callback. They give it to another guy.
Man.
The other guy who got it, the role that I eventually played, was not Middle Eastern. Problem for me. And I was really pissed because those kinds of casting choices weren't made in reverse. But some Middle Eastern community was not, there wasn't the same protection for our roles that there are for other ethnic groups.
Right.
So I was so pissed that I wrote this manifesto and I was like, fuck this show. I'm calling them out. I send it to all these publications and Playbill ends up responding and being like, we're going to publish this.
Whoa.
And a day before they publish, I'm like, hey, I want to take out the part where I'm calling people's names out and just let's talk about the theme. Let's just talk about that. I believe Middle Eastern roles should be cast authentically. It comes out. I get a call from my agent that the actor who got the role dropped out.
Whoa.
By the end of that week, I had 3 more auditions and I had gotten the part. And that was like probably the best, one of the highest moments of my life and certainly of my 20s.
Wow. So I had no idea behind all that, the story behind it. So you basically writing this manifesto in frustration, basically got the other guy to drop out and all the best wishes.
Well, you know what? It was actually it was happenstance. The manifesto was kind of published kind of as an interview. As it turned out, this other guy dropped out because he got a different job. It was kismet. It was just time. it was timing. That's what it was.
And I hope that whoever that actor is doing well, but the point was it needs to be ethnically appropriately cast. And so he drops out. You get
Yeah.
this sudden fame, at least in the trades, the publication, Broadway playbill, etc. And you get cast, and suddenly you have a dream role that you were, oh my God, that's awesome.
It was a great moment uh for a while until it wasn't.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
Well, listen, that kind of spotlight brought out a degree of anxiety in me that was eating me alive, which is what I end up writing about on my show.
Yeah.
So you have this really exciting professional moment. The show is, I've now learned that they don't, all shows don't become that successful. That's a lucky thing. I had no control over that. I just
Right.
was right place, right time, right show.
Right manifesto.
Right. So it's a balance. I can't say it was a misery. I mean, it was like
Right.
thrilling. It's like, oh my God. I remember, going back to the kid who was like 12, 13 years old, dreaming of, you know, being a basketball player and so ashamed of my ethnic heritage and that post 9/11 environment of, Arab people suck and they're not cool, all these different things. And all of a sudden you're 26 and getting nominated for, the biggest award in your field. It was like probably a degree of imposter syndrome
Right.
of like, what? But also thrilling.
Yeah.
But like, it was a mixed bag. I mean, as life always is, right? Like, it was just like the,
Double-edged sword.
the greatest thing to be on a Broadway stage every night, to be, touching people because you're representing them in a way that they've never represented. Like, it was awesome, but it was also stressful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for painting the dichotomy of that. Yeah, because with great power comes great responsibility. It's a duality, I'm sure, and you're just riding the wave of success, but then there's all the anxiety and stress that comes with it.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense. We can't wait to see that play out at Theater J out of character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask about Tony Night specifically because I know the show won I think it was at 10,
And
including Best Musical. Best Actress goes to Katrina Lenk, Best Actor Tony Shalhoub, and then of course you win Best Featured Actor.
yep.
I believe in your speech you said something about what's the quote? I want any kid that's watching this to know that your
Greatest
biggest
obstacle
obstacle.
may become your purpose.
Say again.
I think it was your greatest obstacle can become your purpose.
That's a brilliant line. So yeah, did you have that plan to say as you're sitting there, or did you not think you were going to win and that just came to you on the fly, or how does that come about?
The night before I couldn't sleep, I jotted like 5 notes down, like bullet points on my iPhone of like what I might say, but it
Yeah.
just flowed out. Like, these were things that were on my spirit the whole time. And,
Yeah.
I felt like, and I said that, I in the speech I talked about, the shame that I had went through as far as hiding my background, and then that sort of fueling me to want to so feverishly and fervently represent my culture on stage. Yeah, I'm cutting myself off because my sense and understanding of my culture has changed a great deal since then.
Okay.
And I think we're in an environment now in 2025 where I don't know if in this environment I would have even played that role, because
Wow.
though I'm Yemeni, I'm also Jewish and Israeli.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know in this day and age if people think that would have been appropriation. So it continues to get more and more interesting and complicated.
Oh, you could have
And
been on
it's,
the other end of a manifesto now, you're saying?
yeah, yeah. And there were
Wow.
people who were upset, right? That
Yeah.
like, I'm a Jewish guy playing an Egyptian.
Right.
And even though there are Egyptian Jews,
Right.
right,
You're
we
getting
could
a
do a
lot.
whole other podcast about this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm enjoying the time you're at least giving. Yes, it's a lot more of a nuanced conversation, which I think ultimately is a good thing. And that each year that passes, we define it a little more. But it's
But
fascinating.
what I want to just add to that is that I do dissect a lot of this in my play, and I do sort of go beyond that, because my sense at 26 on that Tony Award stage was like, I've arrived. And I felt very comfortable just saying I was Middle Eastern. And that was a step in my journey of understanding who I was. But as I've gotten older, my sense of who I am is much more complex. And let's harken back to how we started the conversation. The world has changed a lot for Jews and Arabs. And so the degree of specificity with which I now see myself is different than I saw myself then.
Beautifully said. I could not even put it into words better myself, so we'll leave it at that on that topic. But I do real quick want to ask, I guess this to fill the gap between Band's Visit and Out of Character Now. I want to remind folks some of the great opportunities that opened up for you coming off of the Tonys and winning that night for Band's Visit. You get cast in episode of Billions, which is a huge show. You start doing movies, so you go to the big screen and like the Sundance hit Zola in 2021, and then Don't Worry, Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde with Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, great cast. Memories of getting to go onto the big screen. You thought it might have been as an NBA player, but instead, But how is going from a Broadway show night in night out in a proscenium theater to getting to go and suddenly you're playing for close-ups with the camera and knowing it's going to be an edit. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, it was exciting. I mean, those were smaller roles. There's actually an unannounced movie that I just filmed in Italy earlier this year, which I played the lead role in.
Oh, plug it. What's it called?
It's called Death Do Us Part. And I played Death in that, and that was really interesting and really fun. Look, man, I mean, I love to answer. Okay, so there's obviously, showing up in LA, and I remember the first day we did a table reading, Harry Styles was like, "Congratulations on your Tony, mate." And I was like, "Right on, bro. Thank you for knowing who I am."
And more importantly than Harry Styles, you also met your girlfriend, Kiki Lane, right?
Yep, I met her on Don't Worry, Darling. So that was awesome.
Because she had just done If Beale Street Could Talk, and that is, I interviewed her and Barry Jenkins separately. They both came to DC, and we interviewed her for that, and she was great in Dandelion last year too. So
yeah, she was. She's awesome.
That's
and
so cool.
She just they're in the final edits for the Old Guard 2, which she's awesome in.
That's your NBA career, right? The Old Guard.
The Old Guard, exactly. Exactly.
You make a cameo.
I mean, listen, when you're on set doing a movie, it's like a vacation. I mean, it's just all of your needs are taken care of. Yeah. It's very different than theater. Like, I think the experience of theater is more visceral and more alive, but that's not exactly true, because the film, it's different and it's the same because what you're chasing is the truth.
Yeah. They're great in their own very different ways. Yes.
Yeah, you're chasing the truth, man, and I just love that experience of chasing the truth, whether it's on screen, whether it's whatever. But like I am, my love, and I think a lot of actors say this, my great love is always gonna be the stage. I feel most alive on the stage, and like I'm a crazy enough person to like want to be on stage for an hour and a half. I mean, that is a very, very challenging thing to do. But I think when you push your body, your spirit, your soul to that level, it brings out the best of your artistry.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much. Seriously, it's been a great career. I think Law and Order SVU. There's so many other great roles that have come out of this. So thank you so much. But everybody, first and foremost, you have to check out Tony winner Ari'el Stachel's one-man show, Out of Character, now through January 26th, co-presented by Theater J and Mosaic after Berkeley Rep originally. It's your first chance to see it here on the East Coast, and even if you saw it at Berkeley, your very first time to see it post all of the Israel-Gaza stuff. So it's a whole new context to this thing. So invite them out. In that light, invite them out. It's a brand new context.
Oh, invite, yeah, please. It would be my pleasure. There's nothing I love more than connecting with audiences. I think there's something to connect with everyone over, whether you struggle with your identity or anxiety. It's a place for us to feel safe together. And I hope in sharing, the deepest depths of my truth, that it helps you connect with yourself and your loved ones. And it would be my honor to have you in the theater here.
Awesome.
Brother, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You rock. Thanks so much.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.